Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to literally deconstruct the world's most popular pants. We're stripping them right down to the threads, the dyes, the whole shebang, just to reveal a surprisingly complex global history. You might think of blue jeans as, a purely American invention, but their origins actually span continents and centuries. Okay, let's dive into this. Take a quick look down for a second. Are you wearing blue jeans right now? Statistically speaking, there's a very, very good chance you are. Or if you aren't, you definitely have a pair sitting in your closet. But how did these incredibly specific, heavy, riveted blue pants literally conquer the globe? Well, to understand that, we kind of need to look way beyond the mythology of the American West. So to do this, we'll follow a quick 4-part deconstruction journey. 1, the fabric and its global roots. 2, the color, that famous blue gold. 3, the hardware, which is an American invention. And 4, the culture, going from working class all the way to rebellious. All right, part 1, the fabric, global roots. The material we think of as the ultimate symbol of Americana actually starts directly across the Atlantic Ocean. But first, let's just define exactly what denim is. If you look really closely at your jeans, you'll see these tight diagonal ridges, right? That's what we call a heavy-grade warp-face twill weave. The absolute defining characteristic of true denim is how it's woven. The lengthwise threads, the warp, are dyed indigo blue, while the horizontal threads, the weft, are actually left white. It's this specific interlocking pattern that gives denim its famous mottled, washed look, and, of course, its incredible durability. And this brilliantly illustrates where our modern words actually come from. It's kind of wild to think about, but the quintessentially American names denim and jeans are literally just linguistic corruptions of European textile hubs. Back in the late 17th century, weavers in Nimes, France, produced this sturdy fabric called serge de Nimes, which literally just means serge from Nimes. Over time, English and French merchants sort of mashed that together and shortened it to simply denim. Meanwhile, over in Italy, textile workers in the port city of Genoa were making their own durable indigo fabrics that sailors absolutely loved. The term Genoa was anglicized and shortened over time into, you guessed it, jeans. So you have 2 completely distinct fabrics from 2 European cities, ultimately combining into the item we all know today. By the mid-19th century, denim was being mass manufactured in the US, but mostly just as cheap, tough workwear. Actually, pre-1900s American denim garments are extremely rare to find today. But museum pieces give us this amazing window into the past. For example, there's a surviving denim frock coat from around 1855 in the FIDM Museum collection, and it shows exactly how this fabric was utilized way before the gold rush explosion. What's really cool is it features a mix of hand sewing and early mechanical sewing, a true physical testament to the Industrial Revolution happening right at that very moment. Moving right along to part 2, the color, blue gold. This is where we shift gears a bit to look at the serious, historical weight behind the fabric's iconic hue. That blue is, of course, indigo. Before modern chemistry came along, indigo was a plant-derived dye. It was extracted from the fermented leaves of the indigofera plant. When that extracted, sort of yellowish liquid is exposed to air through a process called oxidation, it magically yields this brilliant, deep violet blue hue. We're talking about an ancient global dye here, used for over 6,000 years, everywhere from early Peruvian settlements all the way to the Roman Empire. But fast forward to the 18th and 19th centuries, and it became incredibly lucrative. Now, the historical reality of the 19th century American textile industry is that the booming cotton and indigo trades were inextricably linked to and relied heavily upon the forced labor of enslaved people. To understand the economic mindset of that era, we can look directly at primary sources, like an 1853 quote from the American Cotton Planter magazine. It explicitly stated, "If these blessings continue, slave labor must also continue, for it is idle to talk of producing cotton for the world supply with free labor." It is a stark, very real reminder of the human cost built right into the early foundations of the global textile trade. The whole landscape of indigo changed dramatically right at the end of the 19th century. A German chemist named Adolf von Baer actually developed a synthetic indigo, a massive discovery that would later earn him a Nobel Prize. The difference between the two is pretty stark. Natural indigo is biodegradable, but it's expensive, and the color can be really irregular and nuanced. Synthetic indigo, on the other hand, is heavily chemical intensive, but crucially for manufacturers, it's significantly cheaper and provides a totally standardized, uniform blue. This synthetic alternative is the real game changer that revolutionized the mass production of denim. All right, on to part 3, the hardware, an American invention. Okay, this is the exact moment where European fabrics and ancient dyes finally meet the classic American mythology of the blue jean. The story really revolves around two essential figures, both of whom were immigrants to America. On one side, we have Jacob Davis. He was a Latvian immigrant and a tailor working out of Reno, Nevada. And on the other, we have Levi Strauss, a Bavarian immigrant who opened a wildly successful dry goods company in San Francisco right during the height of the California gold rush. Fun fact, Strauss was actually Davis's go-to supplier for heavy denim and duck cloth. Let's walk through this rapid-fire timeline. Back in 1870, the wife of a woodcutter asked Jacob Davis to make a sturdy pair of pants for her husband. Why? Because, to put it simply, he just kept blowing out his pockets on the job. So Davis had this brilliant idea. He took small copper rivets and placed them right at the stress points, the pocket corners, and the base of the buttonfly. And they were a massive hit. The problem was, Davis didn't have the money to patent the idea. So, in 1872, he wrote to his fabric supplier Levi Strauss and proposed a partnership. Strauss saw the vision and agreed to back him financially. So the crucial point is this specific number, 139,121. On May 20th, 1873, U.S. patent number 139,121 was officially granted to Jacob Davis and Levi Strauss for an improvement in fastening pocket openings. This specific patent officially birthed the modern American blue jean. Think about that for a second. It wasn't the fabric, and it wasn't the color. It was literally the tiny copper rivet that completely changed fashion history. Finally, part 4, the culture, working to rebellious. Let's look at how a humble work pant evolved into the ultimate global fashion icon. The cultural shift of denim is just staggering. Back in the 19th century, jeans, which were actually called waist overalls back then, were strictly the uniform of miners, mechanics, laborers, and enslaved agricultural workers. But cut to the 1950s, and the rise of Hollywood completely reframed denim. You had stars like James Dean and Marlon Brando wearing them on screen, which transformed jeans into the absolute ultimate symbol of youthful rebellion. That rebellious spirit spread like wildfire, adopted by beatniks in the 1970s counterculture, until eventually they just became the socially acceptable, everyday staple of the global wardrobe we all know today. However, this massive popularity definitely came at a cost. As demand skyrocketed in the 70s and 80s, mass production moved overseas. Large-scale manufacturers started pre-washing jeans to make them softer and immediately comfortable right off the rack for consumers. But the trade-off? That traditional, incredibly sturdy, rugged construction of the original waisted overalls was largely lost. The modern jean was definitely softer, but fundamentally, it was weaker. Which leads us to a really fascinating question. If mass-market jeans lost their original toughness decades ago, who is actually preserving the true vintage American denim tradition today? Like, where can you find jeans made exactly like they were before the 1970s? The surprising answer? Japan. Starting in the 80s and 90s, Japanese denim connoisseurs who harbored this incredibly deep passion for post-World War II American culture began pioneering techniques to literally save the craft. Brands over in Japan started using old shuttle looms to create vintage, raw, selvage denim. They effectively preserved the American-inspired manufacturing process right when manufacturers in the U.S. were changing their methods for mass appeal. It's a fascinating global circle, isn't it? A fabric from France and Italy, dyed with an ancient plant, riveted by immigrants in America, and preserved by artisans in Japan. So the next time you pull on a pair of jeans, ask yourself, whose history are you really wearing?